If we go back to February 2020, how did you first learn what had happened to Ahmaud? Is this a difficult question also?
Huh?
Is it a difficult question? I mean, I can imagine that it is, but...
Yeah.
Okay.
The death of Ahmaud Arbery last year sparked protests across the United States.
We're going to carry the light from Ahmaud.
Arbery's family says he was out for a jog February 23rd. But 64-year-old Gregory McMichaels and his son Travis told police Arbery was a burglar and chased him.
Arbery died after being shot during that encounter.
Ahmaud's former football coach and other community members believe that social justice for Ahmaud, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others begins with lawmakers.
Have y'all heard about the Confederate Monument downtown? No, not the history teacher, Coach. Coach, can you give them a quick few seconds on this monument downtown, which is the problem?
Our city, that's already hurting. We're trying to come together, so we want to get rid of all of those, symbols of, division in our city. You see what I'm saying? So your kids and, your grandkids don't have to look at it when they go downtown. We good?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I got 112 football players I got to look in the eye. And I got to hand over them a better community than I found. And so, even when I see them or when I see my students, I know I got to create better for them. And I teach African American studies. And so I'm telling the stories of the past, and I'm thinking, I don't want you going through that.
Kids grow up in different type of households, so they just raised a certain way from different from us. So they walk around with Confederate flags on, and they say it's a different meaning than what we think it is.
So the sons of the Confederate veterans came down and wrapped it up because of the attention that has been drawn nationally. So they came down and bubble wrapped it.
In school, you got different people's opinions, and you got so much animosity going on now. You might have a big fight break out. You don't want that on the school name. Yeah. So I see why they don't want to talk about it in school.
Yeah.
You want us to start?
Yeah, y'all can go ahead and start. I'll just hit some of the houses that I know myself. So, did y'all talk to him? Hey, how's it going?
All right,
you good?
Everybody doing? Y'all doing all right?
Good. How you been?
All right.
Good. You plan on voting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you watch the video?
Oh yes, man. I watched the video last year. Cause when it came out, it was all over the place. So they was just sharing it. So it's like no way you can hide it from nobody. The whole world seen it now.
Millions have seen the disturbing video. 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery shot and killed as he's jogging in rural Georgia.
Remember when you watched that video?
I never watched it. I haven't seen it. I've heard about it. But no, I have not seen the video.
Really? Why?
I really don't want to see it. It was a terrible situation, and I just didn't want to see it.
Do you see it as a racial incident?
What I knew about Greg and his son, I can't see that. They never indicated anything to me where they were like that at all. They just never did. I was very surprised when I saw them being the ones out here. because I wouldn't have thought that. You know, like I said, I was very surprised it happened here after all these people are all really nice that I've met.
So one of the things that we heard resounding across the community when the video came out was, how did this happen here? You know, we're unified, you know, we don't have those issues here. So I think you have to talk about Glenn County in the context of Brunswick. Brunswick is the largest city in the county. It's also the darkest city. When I say darkest, I mean 60% black. It's also the city that has the highest poverty rate, one of the highest poverty rates in the nation. And then you sit within this county that has this opulence surrounding it, right? St. Simon's Island, Jekyll Island. You move to the county, it's 30% black at that point. So you really have a tale of two cities that are separated by a bridge, literally. You have a high rate of poverty, disproportionate for black folks. You have low rates of home ownership, disproportionate for black folks. A large amount of folks on probation and parole, primarily black folks. You have people in political office that run unopposed, and only 600 people voted out of 8,000 registered voters. So if one would consider that unified, then that means that that's because everyone else has been silent.
Just being, you know, a history teacher, and, you know, I teach African American studies. These tragedies happen so much. They happen so much in our country that, I don't know, maybe this is not even a bookmark in history. And that would be one of the most tragic things in the world, that something, you know, this tragedy happened and we don't learn from it, we don't grow from it, we don't change from it.
In African tradition, there was someone called the griot. And the griot was responsible for telling the narrative of the history of the family or the tribe. That person had to remember all of this, right? We don't have a griot in the United States of America who can tell the accurate story, right? And people like the McMichaels can choose to live their lives and never hear the story, the full story. And the result is the death of an innocent black boy, a young man, a young black man who died for no reason.
I'll say at the outset, everybody deserves to be able to run anywhere without being fearful that they're going to be gunned down. But when it was Ahmaud Arbery that was gunned down, and I knew who he was, it outraged me, because he is the descendant of a prince. He is akin to royalty. I mean, he is the closest thing we have to royalty here, his family. He was the descendant of Bilali Muhammad, who's been here since the 1790s.
He was a royalty among the slaves, partly because he could read, he could write. He brought the Arabic language, you know, onto American shores. He was a brilliant agronomist, you know, and he brought the materials and the tricks of the trade from West Africa, and they worked on the Georgia coast. And I think he was just highly regarded among his people, a man who stood above all the others.
People are always talking about the founding fathers of this country, right? The founding builders of this place were Ahmaud's family.
His family is tied to Brunswick, Georgia itself. Brunswick is the second largest Gullah Geechee city in all of Georgia. And so these African Gullah Geechee people, they play a role with regards to laying out the streets and the squares in the place we know as Brunswick, Georgia. A planned city, much like Savannah. So that tells you that these people had skills, they had skill sets, not just regulated to just them working on a plantation, but people who were still keeping Africa alive.
People were brought here, forced here, immorally, but they were chosen particularly because of their brains and their knowledge of rice culture and indigo culture, something that European people had no real knowledge of. And they dug the canals and built this place.
Now, I will tell you, the McMichaels and Roddy Bryant's families go way, way back in Georgia history. As you saw, some of my students' research showed that, the McMichaels' ancestors fought for the Confederacy. Some owned slaves, and they go back a long ways. And so they may feel they have a right to be there. Well, so did Ahmaud Arbery.
So we have a collision of two worlds, of two historic worlds. And it's really important that you get the word historic in there, because neither of those entities that met each other met in a vacuum of the here and the now. They both brought with them their respective histories. And unfortunately, in the United States of America, the more powerful history is the one that came on the backs of the McMichaels.
I realize history has seized us here. I realize that. History is gonna be here. And reading history books 10 years from now, it will be about this place. Things that happens, it always depends on what you do with it once it happens to you. Are you gonna lay down and just die, or are you gonna get up and do something about it?
I think people will look back and say that this sparked and created a change, where America looked at a very real problem and prompted change. And so they got rid of the citizen arrest law. They got rid of stand your ground laws around the country. It's what sparked the change, and that's what I hope that it does. I hope that it sparks a change around the country. And when they look at Brunswick, they can say that, look, if Brunswick can unite and come together, this small town where people don't have a lot in common depending on what street you live on, if they can come together and create a change, our country can come together and create a change.